Hello everybody, welcome to Summit Philanthropy. My name is Brett Hare and I'm here today with my partner Jordan Glatt, the former mayor of Summit. And we're here today to tell you a little story about the Other Fellow First Foundation, which has been in existence now for about 19 years. We exist to help New Jersey families in distress. We focus in Summit. And because we live in such a truly generous town, we've been blessed to have been able to raise over $5.5 million and donate that back to the community, which is why we're here today to tell you a little about some of the things we do. Our basic mission is helping families who basically fall through the crack. They're too small to be helped by the Red Cross. They're to a large degree disenfranchised. They may be the victims of a fire, as was the case in January of 2018, where the whole building burned down and there were 12 families on the street. Or perhaps a family that has a member who's unexpectedly deceased and the family can't pay for the funeral. We don't spend a lot of time blowing trumpets. We like to be under the radar screen. We can only exist with the help of the community. We also have another function where we try to help the various charities in town who are great at doing what they do, but most of them loathe the idea of having to ask for money. And since we're in that business, we're occasionally finding ourselves in a position to help these organizations tell their story and help them raise money, which is an interesting segue into what this show will focus on today, which is something that Jordan will lead and tell you about the Summit Volunteer First Aid Squad. So Jordan, why don't you tell us about what we're going to be talking about today?
Well, thank you, Brett. Today we're with one of my favorite organizations, the Summit First Aid Squad. They've been around for over 50 years in town. People don't realize they're 100% volunteer. It's really, truly neighbors helping neighbors. They answer about 2,000 plus calls. I'm sure they'll shed a brighter light on that. And today we're joined by John Christmann and the President of the Squad, Bob Flanagan. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Brett, and thank you, Jordan, very much for having us. And thanks for all your help that you've given us throughout the years.
So why don't we start with, how did you guys get involved with the squad?
Want me to start?
Well, you started longer ago, John, so why don't you start?
I started in 2003, so this is now 15 years that I've been on the squad.
Wow.
It's a long time. And I was at a point in my life where I had professional change and I had some time on my hands, and I saw the ambulance go by and it said Summit Volunteer First Aid Squad. And I never really put it together that it was a volunteer organization until I saw the volunteer on the truck. So I called up and tried to find out a little bit more. I had no background in any kind of medical. I had no medical training and wasn't even sure if I was going to like it. But they opened the door. They said, "Come on in." They trained me, and it's just been a great experience. It's a great bunch of people there. I got assigned to a crew, became very good friends with them. Got all the training, rode on the ambulance the very first day I was there, and then went on to get an emergency medical technician certification later on. And it's been great. I enjoy it. It's very rewarding, good friendship, good camaraderie. So that's why 15 years.
It's a lot of service.
Yeah, my story is a little briefer than that. I first encountered the squad in about 2013. I had recently retired from the business world and I had some time and I wanted to be involved in something worthwhile. And I went to a squad fundraiser. The squad was in the midst of its first and only so far capital campaign to raise money for the new building. And if my memory serves me correctly, I think that fundraiser was at your house, Jordan. So you played a role in this. And so I liked
Don't blame me.
I liked what I heard that day, and the primary speaker that day was John Christmann. And I liked what John had to say. I knew it was worthy of our support, but I also thought I might like to do it that day when I heard John. And John assured me that it didn't require any medical training or anything like that, which was important to me because I didn't have a medical background. And lo and behold, 5 years later, it has truly been one of the most worthwhile, fulfilling experiences of my life. And you know, John has made a substantial commitment to the squad, and I think in my shorter time I have as well. But I have to say the squad has done an awful lot more for me than I believe I will ever do for the squad.
So
How does, why don't you tell us and our audience, what does the town get from the services that you guys provide?
Well, you know, obviously what you're getting is basic first responder emergency service. When there is somebody who needs an ambulance, who needs medical help, we're the first responders, and you know that. And of course, any community is going to have some way to meet those needs. The benefit of having us is that you get an organization that's centrally located, that is primarily dedicated to Summit. We do serve neighboring communities in a mutual aid network, but we are here primarily to serve Summit. We know the streets, we know the town, we can respond to calls quickly. And the best part about it is we do so with no labor cost. All of the labor, all of the supervision is donated by our volunteers. Nobody ever gets a bill. And you know, we're here to provide compassionate service to the people who are our neighbors.
Does the town, are any of the taxes of the town involved in supporting your effort?
No, I think that's one of the surprising things when we talk to people. They just assume that we're part of the city. We operate as part of the city because of what we do, but we are not. We're not part of the city financially. We're a nonprofit corporation, so all of our funding comes through donations.
am I correct in saying, I believe the only thing the city does give you, they gave you the land and gasoline, is that correct?
That's it.
For
Yeah,
the
we get-
ambulance? Right.
Yeah, we get the gasoline from them, but we are, again, as I said, our labor is free, but we are responsible for raising 100% of the cost of keeping the lights on and keeping the ambulances stocked. And not only that, we're responsible for buying the ambulances themselves as well as other big ticket items. All of that comes from our own fundraising.
So why don't you tell us a little about, why don't you put a little meat on the bones as to what's your budget, operating and capital, and how do you go about raising that dough every year?
Well, I'll do the budget part. John has been hugely involved in a lot of the fundraising, so I'll let him get into some of that. But in terms of the budget, as 2018 end of 2018 draws near, we're going to generate about $230,000 in kind of operational revenue this year. Of that, about 190 will be from our annual fund, which is our direct mail campaign that commenced in October and will wrap up early in the new year. So that's about 190. The other 40,000 are unrestricted grants and the like. So about 230,000 is what our revenue will likely be for 2018. Now, where the problem starts to emerge is that our 2019 operating budget exceeds that. So just on an operational basis, we are projecting a deficit for 2019. And that's before you even get into capital cost. And just as an example, we maintain 3 ambulances, and we don't want to have an ambulance for more than 12 years. So as a result, we have to buy a new ambulance every 4 years at a cost of at least $200,000. So the accrual for that is on top of the operational deficit that we have.
That's formidable.
It is formidable.
A very, very expensive operation to run.
It is, and we've typically financed our operations through an annual fund drive, and this was going on long before I joined the squad. starts at the end of September, runs through December, and it was a mail campaign. We send out notices to all the residents, about 7,000 households in Summit. And people are very generous, but we probably get a response of about 1,000 households, I think. And typically that has kept up the lights on. That's been good. But our expenses have gone up quite a bit over the last couple years. And we're still getting the same amount on the fund drive. So we're trying to do more things. We're trying to do some more outreach with social media, email, because it's been a pretty static campaign. And what we really would like is, if we could just get more households to donate, we'd be fine. It's 1 in 7 right now. If we could get to 2 in 7, we'd be great.
Yeah, John raises a good point. If we get 1 out of 7 now, and we're grateful for the support that we receive, but we just think about, geez, if we could just get 2 out of 7 and have the same ratios, we'd be in great, great shape.
Tell us a little about why. I mean, you got a brand new building, and the expenses have gone up. Is that a result of electricity and insurance being more, or is it just more technology and a nicer building and all the things that come with that?
It's easy, I think, people to look at the building, which we are so grateful that the people of the town helped us build, and of course you helped us immeasurably as well, and look at that building and say that the cost of running that building must be so much greater than your other building. And some of them are incrementally higher, but trust me, that increase is manageable. It really just has to do with the world is getting more technical, and sometimes good things become bad things. For example, the nature of pre-hospital care, what we provide, the care at the scene, has evolved in recent years. EMTs are cleared now to do more things than we used to be able to do, more interventions. And that's a really good thing for the patient. But for the squad, that means more training. It also means we need to have more advanced and often expensive equipment.
How many members now do you have?
We have about 70 members, and I'd say around 50 are adult members, and then we have our junior program, which is fantastic, and we have about 20 juniors, so they're the high school students.
And you're covering 24/7?
24/7, 365 days a year. We do a little over 2,000 calls a year, and so that's on average 5 calls a day. Now, the calls don't come in that way,
Right.
But on average, and that's over a 24-hour period. And believe me, we do have calls in the middle of the night.
So the junior program, I've heard a lot about. It seems to be transformative for a lot of kids. Can you maybe just, gentlemen, spend a minute or two just how that works?
Yeah, it was started, I think, in the 70s and one of our current adult members was one of the first juniors on the
Mike
program.
DeClessis,
Mike
right?
DeClessis,
Yep.
yeah. It really is a great program. We bring in high school students. They come on. They have a regular shift after school or in the evening. It's only 4 hours a week, and they ride on the ambulance. They get trained. A lot of them will go on to be EMTs. But the thing I think that's so great about it is that these young kids come in. A lot of them think they want a career in medicine, and we do have a lot of juniors that go on to medical school, become doctors or nurses or physician's assistants. We also have kids that think they want to be doctors, and after 2 years they decide this really is not what I want to do. And I always tell their parents, I've just saved you that's a lot of tuition in medical school.
I say that about internships are as much about what you want to do as what you don't want to do, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
but and I have 3 kids that have all been through the junior program, and I watch these kids. They come in, they don't know what they're doing, and they gain so much confidence after 2 years.
right.
And I think one of the side benefits that I notice with all these kids is that they learn how to communicate with adults. After spending 2 years with their crew, they feel so at home talking to other people.
Well, and I'll just throw in a couple of things about the juniors. First of all, the juniors are an important part of the mosaic that is really one of my favorite things about being on the squad. We are men and women. We're 16 years old and 70 plus. We're white collar and we're blue collar. So the juniors, John may have said about how we help them learn to communicate with adults. they may help us learn to communicate with young people. But the other thing I have to say, because maybe in the world that we live in that can be a little cynical at times, and people will say young people today, derisively, I have to say the young people that I have met on the First Aid Squad give me a lot of faith in the future, because I see these kids, they come in, if it's a snow day and everybody else is happy because they have no school, those kids who were supposed to come in at 4, invariably they come in at 8 o'clock in the morning to pull a whole shift. If we're busy, they help us. If we're not busy, then they're doing the whole pressure of junior and senior year in a pressure cooker town like Summit, doing their homework, studying things that I can't even read one page in their book. So it's really a great privilege for us to get to work with them.
How would junior get involved in the squad? What's the process?
Every year we have an application. So this for the following year, in 2019, applications are due in March, and then we basically have interviews with all the juniors. And unfortunately we have far more applicants than we have positions, but usually it comes down to a scheduling issue, because we only have certain slots open, and then these kids are so busy these days that sometimes they just can't meet the commitment.
So if somebody watching today is impressed and wants to help, can you share with the audience ways that they might be able to access your website to make a donation, maybe leave you and the squad in their will? Are there things that would be helpful for the audience to know today that you might want to share with us?
Well, I'll start. It's a few things. First of all, in this direct mail campaign, our annual fund, the constant pillar that we've had, the households who have not donated after we did the first mailing in October, a second mailing will be going out quite soon, right, John?
Yeah,
in the next few days.
like today.
So all the households who did not contribute the first time will get a second shot. So be on the lookout for that, and tell your friends to be on the lookout for that. I believe the Summit website address is on the screen at this point. You can go out there right now and give to us. We're really kind of in a position at this point where we need to increase our revenue. I would say something like 100 to 150,000 a year from our current levels to ensure our solvency. As we said, we're all volunteers. We love doing this on a volunteer basis. We don't ever want to give anybody a bill, but we need a little bit more support from the public in order to be able to do that, to ensure that we'll always be here.
Yeah, and we're always looking for members, and on our website there's information on what we do, how to join, applications, and you can always just call up. Our shifts are, we usually expect someone to pull a 12-hour shift one day a week, and then some shifts on weekend. So there's a commitment, but it's not an onerous commitment, and it's very worthwhile. And so if people have time and they think that they're interested in the squad, please call us up. We'll show you around. We'll tell you what we do. And we also have ride-along programs, so somebody can come in and just hang out and ride on the ambulance.
That's interesting. So any resident can just...
That's right.
That's very nice.
Well, before we wrap up here, are there any things that we haven't covered that you guys would like the audience to know?
I guess the thing that I might just throw out, to some degree, some people might be afraid of trying something like riding in an ambulance because, let's face it, meeting people, i.e. patients, on what might be their worst day of the year doesn't sound like it's everybody's idea of a great way to spend their free time. And yet, the people who do it, and again, most of us had no medical experience, whether it's the older ones or the juniors, love doing this. We really enjoy it paradoxically, even though it is hard for the people who on a given day are afflicted. So, I would just encourage people, if you have even the slightest interest, or if you have a friend that has the slightest interest, give it some thought and do one of those ride-alongs.
I have to say, having done a ride along, not voluntarily. That knowing the people, seeing a friend show up and a neighbor show up is a lot more comforting than a stranger. And I think people sometimes rule that out. That truly is your neighbors helping neighbors.
Well, and I guess I would say, you know, I've been around for a number of years now, not just in the squad, but in life. And I just will say that point when you go out and call to a person who's sick or injured and scared, and you start to recognize that person trusts you and knows that you're there to help, I have to say it's a feeling unlike any feeling I've had in my life. And, you know, it happens to us fairly routinely. And that's kind of priceless, which I guess is why we work for free.
Well, on behalf of the entire community, Jordan and I and our 3 other trustees who are not here today, Jim Graberis, who owns the diner, Neil Trangucci, and David Hare, would all like to thank you for all you do for our community.
Wow.
And as far as our show is concerned, the story that you just heard is a manifestation of what makes this community of ours such a truly unique place to live. We've got people who are exceptionally passionate, exceptionally selfless, giving up a significant part of their lives to make this community 07901 something special. And on behalf of all of us in the community and all of us here at HTTV, at the Other Fellow First Foundation, we'd like to thank you again for all you do for us. And as far as our audience is concerned, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.